For the latest, let's bring in Chief Congressional Correspondent Chad Pergram. Chad, you've covered Lindsey Graham since he was in the House as a Clinton impeachment manager. You have known every consequential lawmaker on Capitol Hill for decades. How does Lindsey Graham fit in?
You always have a figure, especially in the Senate, somebody who doesn't have a leadership position, somebody who's not the majority leader, the whip, something like that. Lindsey Graham kind of performed that function in the Senate because he was always in the middle of every policy debate. I remember covering him back in 2005, and President George W. Bush had a plan to partially privatize Social Security, and he was in the middle of that conversation. Here he was over in Ukraine dealing with that. You know, it looked like they might be getting somewhere on maybe an off-ramp, as he put it. He was just talking to Volodymyr Zelensky the other day. I was struck by the statement by Dick Durbin, the Democratic whip, who said he had just been with Graham in Europe a couple of days ago. You know, you have these titans of the Senate, somebody who doesn't have the formal title or the office, who kind of make the place run, and that was Lindsey Graham.
Police were apparently called to his house on Capitol Hill around 8:30 p.m. last night. President Trump says he had just spoken to the senator.
He said he's a little tired. It was a long trip, you know, many hours. And he had just gotten back. And I mean, it must have been right after that, because I understand the police or whoever it is came there at about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the evening, something like that. So somebody notified him. But no, he felt okay. I mean, I actually, on the call, he told me, Kristen, he said, you know, I feel good, but I'm tired. He was fine.
We know Senator Graham's dad died of a heart attack when he was 69. Had you heard anything about potential health problems for Senator Graham?
Yeah, no conjecture. In fact, I looked into that a little bit to see if there was anything maybe nefarious. Everybody I've asked about said, you know, no indication yet, but it's something that people have raised some questions about, including some of the top people in the Congress so far. I will say that somebody, you know, who I've covered for years, I noticed that he was certainly aging a little bit. He looked a little more haggard, a little more puffy. I wondered maybe if there was some sort of health problem going on. But again, you know, you just don't know. There's people who look completely healthy, and then something happens. And when my phone rang at 2:35 this morning, I frankly thought that call was about Mitch McConnell. In fact, the person who called me, I said, Graham? Really? I mean, it kind of surprised me, you know, when they woke me up, because we've had all these questions about Mitch McConnell, who continues to be in the hospital.
How did Lindsey Graham figure his way into the middle of every big fight over the last, basically the generation? You got the Clinton impeachment. There are Supreme Court nominations, budget battles, wars.
I think part of it was just he had a radar to know where to be. You talk about the Clinton impeachment battle. It was obvious that the Republican leadership back in the mid-1990s, he came in that big class of 1994 that flipped control of the House for the first time in 4 decades, the Newt Gingrich Revolution, as it's sometimes called. And just a couple of years after that, we had the Monica Lewinsky scandal, and they drafted him to be that impeachment manager. There's about a dozen of these guys. And the purpose, and we had not had an impeachment trial of a president since just after the Civil War. We'd had other impeachment trials for cabinet officials and judges and things like that. So you go and you present your case to the Senate. They're prosecutors, essentially. And just the fact that you had him, somebody who had only been in the Congress a couple of years, that was significant. And I think that probably helped propel him a couple of years later into the Senate. Because remember, those 2 Senate seats in South Carolina had been held by Fritz Hollings and Strom Thurmond for decades. I mean, you had, you know, Fritz Hollings was the junior senator, and he had been in since 1966. And so, you know, but I think that helped him when Strom Thurmond moved along and then unfortunately died a couple of years later, or a little bit later at age 100. Lindsey Graham came to the Senate in 2003.
And you're talking about him as an impeachment prosecutor. One of my first assignments at Fox, traveling political assignments, was to go to South Carolina in 2012 with Senator Graham. We were in SUVs and twin-engine prop planes flying all over the state to different military bases to warn about the dangers of sequestration, the Obama-era, across-the-board budget cuts. But the thing that I remember the most about that, other than when he introduced me to Chick-fil-A for the first time in my life, was that somebody had his locker at a military base where he had served as a JAG lawyer. And they opened up what used to be his locker, and his old flight suit was in there. And he was genuinely moved by, it looked like a lot of memories came flooding back. And for a guy who was always involved in things of the moment, it was really something to see how much it meant to him, his time there, 6 years as a JAG lawyer. What happens next in the Senate tomorrow to honor Senator Graham?
Yeah, well, the Senate will come in for the first time since they've been out for the Independence Day holiday. Barry Black is the Senate chaplain, who's usually really poignant in these moments in his opening invocation to the Senate. They usually drape the senator's desk. They each have desks with a black cloth and usually a flower arrangement of some sort. And there will probably be speeches and commemorations, probably from both sides of the aisle, about Lindsey Graham. Now, the thing that everybody's going to want to know, what happens parliamentarily, electorally? Remember that he is the chairman of the Budget Committee. They have to have a new chairman. They're trying to do Budget Reconciliation 3.0. Okay, that goes through the Budget Committee. That's going to be a problem. Is going to be a problem in the Senate anyway. And then in terms of politics, you know, we hear these names bouncing around from the House. Nancy Mace ran unsuccessfully for governor. Ralph Norman, Joe Wilson, you know, is out there. Certainly Russell Fry. If you were to pluck somebody from the House, as I always say, it's about the math, you start to go down in that majority in the House of Representatives. And there's some people who I talked to this morning who are very concerned about plucking that person from the House maybe to serve the rest of his term. What you could do is have a caretaker senator, somebody who comes in and isn't going to run in this special primary. They're going to have a special primary very soon, and probably by early August. And then that person would be the Republican nominee, very similar to what they're going through on the Democratic side of the aisle in Maine.
Yep.
And then, you know, would be elected and then serve the rest of the term.
Well, it is a difficult day in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
And now for more.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.